Hi, friends. Today's episode, I'm a little out of breath, honestly. I was just running up and down the stairs to get batteries for the podcast equipment. Today's episode is going to focus on the topic of nannies, like our decision to hire a full-time career nanny, what that looks like, my emotions and feelings navigating it all, and then getting like as specific as I feel comfortable sharing around our structure. And I did ask a lot of you all for questions. I asked on my stories, and a lot of you submitted questions. So I'm going to try to include all of those as well. I will say, and this is more specific to like this period of time, depending on when you're listening to the episode, I am feeling great lately. I have been really prioritizing my like reconnecting with myself. I talked about that in the episode 2 weeks ago of just feeling very disconnected and prioritizing time for myself to meditate in the morning. I've been getting up before the boys. I have been doing the energy healing work that I talked about in the episode 2 weeks ago. I just feel things shifting and I'm so happy about that. Again, it's that what you put out, you receive, the energy, the universe, all of it. I just feel like I'm getting closer to my like flow state where I feel confident and happy and excited by things. And it's been such a wonderful change. And I think a lot of that actually has to do with the topic we're going to talk about today in terms of hiring a nanny. So let's walk back a bit, I guess. After I had our first son, I remember talking to my friend who also works for herself and being like, I don't really think I'm going to need anyone to help. Like, I can just do the work I need to get done during his naps. And she was like, okay. Like, just you fucking wait, girl. You have no idea what you're in store for. And she was right. And I navigated this process with having my mom help, having my mother-in-law help, and then we had a sitter, and it was like kind of playing Tetris of everyone's schedule and planning. And again, it was when we were in the city, so I was way more easily able to like sneak out and go do something for work or for myself than now, just because most of that stuff still is happening in the city, so the commute and all of that. And that's kind of how we navigated it for the first year and a half of his life. Then when we moved to the suburbs, we had our sitter coming out here, and I call her, there's some confusion, and I understand, these are just the labels that I used that also they approved and felt comfortable with. I'm using the term sitter as what we had prior for childcare because it wasn't her career. She was doing something on the side, which she's fucking amazing at. And this wasn't like her career or her end game. And we didn't have full-time hours. What we have now is a career nanny. So that's why I use those words, sitter and nanny. You might disagree. That's fine. And then our toddler started school. So then he was in school and we had her coming like one day a week for like the post-school hours. And then when we had our second, I was like, you know what? I don't think we need anyone during my maternity leave. That was a crazy move. And we'll figure it out post-mat leave. So for the past, I guess, 2.5 years, it's not that we haven't had childcare. I want to be very clear about that. We've had childcare in the means of my mother, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and our sitter, but it was never like consistent everyday care. And I think I know a lot of that scheduling and the Tetris moving of everyone's schedule to fit fell on me. And if you are a mom who is navigating different people's calendars and schedules, including your own, it's a lot of mental load. And I know it might not seem like it, but for me, something that I am still having a hard time with that frustrates me is this need to constantly have like 10,000 people approve something before I want to go do something, because it's just a matter of fact. You now have to work around other people's schedules once you become a parent. And that was just wearing on me a lot. And then there were so many work opportunities that I wanted to do that I then wasn't able to do. And then there would be a lot of kind of last minute changes and all of that. So we hadn't had like consistent care for a while. And it was kind of manageable when we just had one and we could tag team. And our first is a very like consistent sleeper, and then he was in school. And that's just not the case with our second. And I felt like I was drowning months 3, 4, 5 when I returned back to work, and we didn't have this like consistent childcare, and he also wasn't sleeping, so there was no time for me to try to work when he napped. It was just utter chaos, and I was in pure survival mode. And I want to be very clear, there are some people who are able to be work from home moms with a job and no childcare, and like I don't know how your brain is able to function in that sense, because my brain gets so overstimulated, and like it just, I'm in awe of your ability to do that. It's not a reality for me. So that was why we made the decision to get full-time care. There are parts of my job I can do when I'm with the kids, and there are parts of my job that I absolutely can't, i.e. this podcast. So for me, that was a really big part of just being like, if I want to actually thrive with work and not just simply try to survive and feel like I'm drowning at the end of every single day, we need to bring on more help. And this was something that I had battled with for a long time, because I don't think I have a label. I don't think we need to label everyone, but in this like work from home, stay at home, work and working mom, all of these things, I don't really associate with one label. And because of that, I felt this disconnect of like, well, do we really need help? And then Joe would be like, in what world do you think we don't need help? If you want to keep working, if you don't, that's a different conversation. But if you want to keep working, we do. So that was what led us to the decision to hire more help. I will say all of my family and friends are very, very proud of me and happy for me that I have finally made that decision. And I will say that after making that decision, from literally week 1, I felt like I could breathe again. And it was such a freeing thing for me to feel. Before we dive into all of the details, I want to acknowledge that there's massive privileges involved with hiring a nanny. Childcare in general is so absolutely expensive in today's world. And I'm not even talking about nanny. Like, there should be better state-funded free options of childcare for working parents. Like, we really, really set up parents to fail, specifically mothers, because they're the ones that are primarily leaving the workforce. Again, that's a whole separate topic, but I do obviously want to acknowledge that. The number one question in this realm of decision is, how did you choose a nanny versus a daycare, or why? For us, our older son goes to a like program. It's not a daycare, but it's like a school, like preschool program. And we decided at that age, once he turned 2.5, we wanted him in that type of program for more of a social setting, getting him out of the house, experiencing more time with other kids his age, and that vibe. And that is our plan with our second as well, once he's at that age. But for right now, the reason we chose nanny over daycare is we both work from home. And again, I'll get into that in a second of like how you navigate that with a nanny. But I really wanted the option to still be able to kind of go in and out of parenting throughout the day when I had the flexibility to. And I know that's a massive gift, but given the fact that we both were going to be here and want him in this space where we can see him, can maybe go and do something with him, can interact, that was the main reason why we chose a nanny over daycare. Another question was, did you consider an au pair? Au pairs are actually very common in the area we live in, and a lot of our friends have them and they love them. And if you're not familiar, because I wasn't, an au pair is through a formal program, and it's someone who's usually like younger-ish, like 20s, that I think so, that comes from another country in the agreement that like they'll live with you. I think they're with you for a year. They'll help you. There are definite like strict rules around how many hours they can work and how many hours they need off and how many days they need off and all of that. But it's at a very, very discounted price. And in exchange, you are expected to home them, you feed them, you show them like your city or your state. You show them not the country, but like an American side of living so that they get that exposure in exchange on top of the fee for their work. I think it's a great idea. However, I did not want someone here 24/7. And also just the layout of our house, there was no place where we felt like they would have their own area, which I personally feel I would want to provide not only them with, but I would want as a family. Like I would want that kind of door that was like, okay, that's your space. And now we can have family time and you can have private time. And that just didn't exist in the current layout of our house. And again, I don't know. It was something about having someone in our house 24/7 that just, it personally didn't resonate with me. But I have many friends who have them and love them. So once we decided we were going to officially look for a career nanny, this was a process of actually finding her. There are agencies that you can use that some of my friends have used, and I knew that that was an option, but I wanted to try to go the non-agency route first because with an agency also comes like a large, typically, fee for the agency to find said nanny, and sometimes I think a higher hourly rate. I'm not entirely sure. So what I did was I went on our local Facebook group. Again, I freaking love our Facebook groups. There's one specifically for like childcare in our area. And on there are people who are posting either that they are nannies or sitters looking for work, or their families posting that they're looking for a nanny, or their families posting saying that their nanny is leaving and they're trying to help them find a replacement family. So I basically posted on there, hey, a little bit about me, a little bit about my husband, our kids, what we were looking for, and then please send over, your information to my email. From there, I got a bunch of different people, and then from those emails, I set up multiple calls and, FaceTimes and interviewed them and then got references. Alongside that, I sent a message to a few of my girlfriends in the area and asked like, hey, I know you have a nanny. Do they have any type of like nanny group? Because that's very popular. WhatsApp groups or some form of texting group for nannies that they're friends with. And my one friend's nanny came to the States as an au pair from Brazil a while back and had like a WhatsApp group of fellow Brazilian women who had come for au pair jobs and then stayed and become career nannies. So again, I put together this little blurb. She put it in her WhatsApp, and then I had a few people reach out that way. So once I interviewed people over FaceTime, there were certain things where maybe I would love the person, but they didn't drive, and that was like a necessity for us. So we had definite necessities in the sense of, we needed someone who was going to drive. There were certain hours of the week we wanted. There were things that maybe they didn't enjoy. Like I had one person who was just straight up not interested in nannying for a family whose parents worked from home, which I fully get, and we both do, and that wasn't changing. So, we filled each other out. Then I spoke with a few references. So I asked them for their reference. I would, call the reference or text them like, hey, I'm interested in learning more about blah, blah, blah. She listed you as a reference. Can we please speak? And then having those phone calls. And in this moment, it was kind of like this feeling of, where am I? Like, who is allowing me to do this? How am I interviewing people or hiring someone or asking these questions? I still sometimes don't feel like I'm necessarily a parent. I still feel like a child. And this just felt very adult to me. People ask, like, what questions do you ask? Honestly, I had my friend send me a list of questions because, again, I didn't know. But things I was asking was, I wanted their history of childcare, what ages they nannied for, what is your feelings around a schedule or routine? Are you open to doing housework, which we'll get into? How do you discipline? What are your thoughts on discipline? What are your ideal day structures? Do you like to get out of the house? Would you like to go to classes? Would you rather like do stuff on your own here? Those types of questions. And then when I was speaking with the references, it was a lot of, what was your experience like with this person? Did you have any issues? Were there any roadblocks? Is there anything that you would want me to know? That type of stuff, and asking them from an employer perspective. And Eventually, I felt very confident with one and really loved her. So we had her over for a trial. And that was basically, I think it was 2 hours. She came, she met the kids. I was there. We kind of talked, but also she was interacting and playing with the children while I was with her. And from then on, I was like, okay, that's definitely who I want to hire. And that is who we ended up hiring. So that was the interview process. Some of my friends were like, you found someone so fucking fast. I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people are looking for at this time period. It was April. I don't know if we looked at whatever it is. I feel so grateful that we found someone who we love and our kids love and feels like a fit in our family. And it was just kind of honestly seamless, knock on wood. Now on to more of like the nitty gritty that people were curious about. Basically, Joe and I sat down and decided what hours we were looking for the week. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 to 5, Thursday. And again, this is so specific. So this is going to be so family dependent on what you need. But like, for instance, Thursday, he's in the city. I would like someone to come a little earlier so that I don't have to bring our baby with us to school drop off for our son. So she starts a little earlier that day. And then Fridays, I especially don't really work Friday afternoons. So I'm like, we don't need her here all afternoon. And this was kind of during our negotiation with her because we were originally looking for less hours, but she was talking to other families who were looking for more, and we knew we really wanted her. So we were like, okay, what hours could we add on? So we came to the agreement of 38 hours a week, and it's pretty set. It is set every week, but we did just talk about, for instance, this summer on Fridays, if we go somewhere Friday morning and we don't need her to come at all Friday, could we shift those 5 hours to a different day afterwards? So maybe we could do a date night because we pay her an hourly rate, but she's guaranteed those amount of hours a week. And then anything on top of that, she's getting extra money. So if we don't use her on Friday, she's still getting that same pay. That was just what we felt was right. And that was obviously what she wanted. So guaranteed set amount of hours a week. The other things were she gets 2 weeks of vacation. This is pretty standard according to all of my friends. 1 week she chooses. So it's the vacation time that she wants to do. And then 1 week it's up to us to choose. So it's a vacation that we're going on and she's just off work. And then 5 sick days. And those are all paid. So again, this is like so specific to what you're looking for and, the negotiating and all of that. But that was kind of what we came to terms with. In terms of a contract, we did write up a contract because I think you should just always have one. It was just a Google Doc of my friends that I kind of reworded to mine. It laid out our pay, our structure, the days, the hours, those things that I just mentioned about vacation and sick days. And I think, and like expectations of tasks. So this is the household portion. And I think this is so dependent on every family and caregiver. But for us, during the interview process, she had said, like, I want to be as helpful as possible. I want to be the third parent, where appropriate. It's not just the kids stuff I want to do. I want to help like run the home. And I was like, honestly, I just want someone to tell me what the fuck to do. And like, that is my dream. So she does help out with household tasks. Mainly tasks focused on the kids. So she helps with their laundry, keeping their rooms clean, and then she does the general laundry of our house. And this is something where I think is a perfect example of I didn't know how beneficial having a nanny would be for my life, but also the mental load. Like she showed up and day 3, she's like, so do you have a schedule for the way you guys do laundry here? And I was like, no. Honestly, like Joe does most of the laundry, but no, there's no schedule. It's just kind of like, oh, that looks like it should get done. And she's like, okay, well, let's make a schedule. Monday, let's do this. Tuesday, let's do this. And I'm like, you have freedom to do truly, I mean, I won't say anything, but like 99% of what you please when it comes to organizing, running the house, like that. I love nothing more than for someone to take control over that, quite honestly. And so she did that. And then, she'll help kind of like keep the kitchen tidy as the day's going on, mainly with our like baby's bottles and that kind of stuff. Or if the dishwasher happens to be needed to be emptied, she is like very open to the idea of doing, grocery runs and all of that. That hasn't been something that she's taken on yet, or any cooking. But I guess we'll see where that goes in the future. But she has definitely taken over some household tasks, and even things that I was never even expecting, of like, she asked me one day, am I specific about where I care, or am I specific about the boys' drawers, and do I care where things are? And I was like, no, I know it's a mess in there. I just kind of like, I know that drawer is shirts, I know that drawer is shorts and pants and whatever. And she's like, okay, I just want to organize it. And I was like, okay. And she organized it meticulously. I'm like, holy shit, you're freaking amazing. And this is what I am realizing, that my friends were like, you won't know what you're missing. And not that you're missing out on not having a nanny, because I know that it's such a privilege, but missing until you have one, where then it's like, wow, this is, I mean, it's a life of fucking luxury. I'm not going to lie. So she has been amazing. And I will say I was nervous about not our baby, because he's still so young. I don't think like he would have a hard time getting to know someone, but I was nervous about our toddler, and the timing actually worked very well, where her first week was actually his post-surgery recovery. So he was home for a week, and I was kind of off work to like help him. And then the week after that was his spring break. So he got a lot of quality time with her and fell madly in love with her very fast. So that has been wonderful. However, she's really honestly rarely with him, given his school day and like after school activities that I take him to. So she's with him like 1 hour sometimes after school, and then one day like an hour before school. So she's rarely with both of them. However, someone did ask this. We did pay her a rate of 2 kids, because I didn't want that to ever become an issue down the road, or just like, there be this misagreement of what was expected versus what's reality if he's off of school or something happens. So that was how we navigated that. Now, for me, it has freed up a lot of time, specifically in the beginning half of my day, because I can now start work at 9, and I am able to work until 3:30 most days. So 3 days of the week, I can work until 3:30. One day I can work until 1, and one day I can work until 2-ish. And that's just based off of like other activities we have for our toddler. And I'm sure if you're listening, it's like, okay, well, why doesn't she do the activities with the toddler and bring the baby with them? And this is where we were looking for not a unicorn, but like, I still want to be heavily involved in the kids' lives. Are there times where I might not be able to do something because something else came up? Sure. But I really try to schedule so that Joe and I do every single school drop off and pick up. And then I do all of our toddlers out of school activities. We're going to start to schedule some activities for our baby that she will take him to, but I will still want to try and do like one of those with him. And this was a big question that you guys asked, because I posted that I was on a walk with our baby, because I'm feeling, I guess the word is guilt. It's a mix of emotions. There's so much gratitude for having someone who I love already so much and trust help take care of our son, or sons, but primarily our younger son. And the gratitude for how much that has freed up for my life, whether it be my personal life or my work, mainly work. There's so much gratitude for that, because it's amazing. And simultaneously, there is guilt. And I think my guilt personally stems from the fact that we didn't have this with our first. So I was more heavily involved with our first during these months specifically. And I really had to come to terms with, that's just not the life that we currently live. I've grown my business in the sense of I have a lot more work than I did at that time. Also, we only had 1 kid. So I was able to be heavily involved and like cram in work that I needed to do when he was napping. But now you're navigating 2 children. It's just a very different world. And so what I have come to terms with, and what helps me with the guilt, is that this allows me to be the best version of myself as a mom when I am in the role of like one-on-one mom time. because it allows me to try and be as present as possible, which I think is the most important thing, and to actually give quality time over maybe what was at one point quantity. That being said, there are times where I am like, I just wish I had those one-on-one moments with him, or I wish I was doing this thing. And Joe keeps reminding me, just because we have someone who's hired to help does not mean that you can't also do something. Like, at the end of the day, they're your child. And if you're able to fit it, if you're able to, with whatever your work or schedule is that day, do it. So the other day I was like, it's gorgeous out. I had a change in my work schedules. I had a free hour, and I went downstairs and I was like, hey, I'm going to take a quick walk. I just want to spend some time with him. We'll be back. And she's like, of course. And I know that seems so simple, but I hadn't done that yet. And when I did it, I was reminded how wonderful that one-on-one quality time can be, and how it doesn't mean I can't have it just because we have someone here helping. Like, she took that hour to eat her lunch, which she normally does during his nap window. Or I don't know, maybe she was just hanging out. I'm sure she was also doing some of the laundry. I'm not I don't micromanage her. I trust her that whatever she wants and should be getting done that day will get done when she sees fit. And someone asked, what do you have her do during his naps? I'm not telling her certain things to do. She, for all I care, and I do it. If you want to bring our kids with you while you're doing the laundry, go for it. It's important for them to see these types of tasks as well. And if you want to just relax during their nap, go for it. Because also, I've had people say well, do you ever feel weird about paying someone to be there for their nap while they're sleeping? No, because they're here. That still frees up the ability for me to go do something if I need to be out of the house. And if there wasn't someone there, I wouldn't be able to do that. So even if they're not physically doing anything, I'm paying them to be the caregiver if the person wakes up from the nap, so that I have the option to go do whatever it is that needs to, or I want to be doing at that time. That being said, working from home can be difficult while your children are here with a nanny. So, one of you asked, how do you let the nanny do their job while you work from home? #helicopter parent. I really try to remove myself from the situation. If they are in one area of the house, I am trying to be in the other area, mainly because I can't work if I'm in that same area. So a lot of times I'll go into my office, or I'll go into our bedroom, shut the door, I work. If I'm then done work and I have free time and they are here, I will go downstairs and play with him and give him love and, affection, and talk to them and whatever, and then go back to doing the work that I was doing. So it's not as if I'm sitting there watching her do everything, because I don't think that'd be enjoyable for anyone, her especially, but also that feels like a waste of money for us. So letting her have that freedom of space and just ability to actually do her job and spend time with the child and care for him while I'm working, but also realizing that one of the best perks of working from home, which I understand is why some nannies wouldn't want to work with work from home parents. I get it. However, if you agree to that structure, I can bop downstairs and be like, hey, what's going on? Let me take him outside for a little bit. I just want to play with him, and she gets to do what she wants to do. I don't think it has to be so black and white. On that note, someone said, how do I not see my nanny as the enemy? And I get the guilt or FOMO. I have a lot of FOMO when it comes to other people spending time with my children. It's something I've been trying to work on for the past 3 years. And if I'm working and someone's with my kids, I don't feel the guilt. I feel the I wish I could be a part of that. Or, oh, they're going to do something so fun. I want to do it. I want to be there. And I've said this before, and it's fucked up and twisted, and I know it's not possible, and I get that. However, in my dream world, when I had to do something, the kids would just be sleeping. They would just be not experiencing anything. They would just be asleep. And I could get what I need to get done. And then it's okay, wake up. And we spend all of their waking moments with me. However, that's not our reality. I also don't think that's healthy for them. Again, it's not even an option, but I don't think it's healthy for them, because it's important for them to have relationships outside of me. And I always am trying to remind myself of that, whether it be they're with my husband, or they're with my parents or his parents or a nanny. It's important for them to bond with people other than myself. So yes, I still have FOMO. Yes, I sometimes I'm fuck, I wish I was doing that with them. However, I also try to remind myself of how wonderful is it that we are providing them a space where they're experiencing all of these incredible things and bonding with different people outside of their parents. I do think that's amazing. And in terms of not seeing your nanny as the enemy, I mean, for me, I'm like, you're my fucking godsend angel sent from above. You allow me, and this is maybe like how you can reconfigure it in your brain. In my opinion, she allows me to excel at work and excel at being a mother. She allows me the space to have the freedom to go do what I love and work and like have that side of my life be creative and outside of my children. But then she allows me the space that I also, after doing that, come back in and have time to spend quality time with my children where I'm present. And like for me, that's the greatest gift I could ever be given. So I, in that sense, view her as truly like a gift from fucking above. And not at all like she's replacing me or taking away from me. She's truly just allowing me to be the best version of a mom I can be and like allowing us to excel as a family. That is the way that I personally look at it. The how do you feel about having someone else in your space and hearing the babe when you're working question ties into that as well. I think like creating the most distance you can for yourself while you're working. And I realize that's not always available. Like in our apartment, that was something that I struggled with so much because it was like the bedroom and the living room. And that was when I kind of started to leave the house to try to do more of my work outside of the home. Here, I'm doing majority of my work inside the home. And for us, it's really, I mean, the fact that I have an office. So giving that separation. If it wasn't, I could maybe try to schedule my work around the option of telling her like, hey, can you take him for a walk during this wake window, and really like cramming in what needed to get done, which I will start to do when I'm recording more stuff in the kitchen or like the general space. I'll try to organize that in a time where they're not at the house because again, like they don't want to be landlocked to this home. They want to be doing stuff, especially now that it's nice out. So it's such a give and take and flex, but trying to give yourself that actual time to get whatever work done that you want to get done and give yourself that space so that you can actually step away and hopefully accomplish those tasks and then come back when you're done and want to like be involved. I think that was all of the questions, and I think I laid out everything I wanted to. Again, I think it's so family dependent. There is no one right answer, but that is what has worked for us, and truly it has been the greatest fucking decision we've ever made. I feel a whole new sense of ability to pour into the buckets that I want to. I'm not saying I've found balance. I'm not saying I've filled every bucket, but I am able to pour into buckets that have been a priority for me. Even the sense of one thing I've really wanted to do is more volunteer work. And I just felt that there was never enough time in the day to add that on. I'm sure I could have, but it wasn't like my number one priority, if we're being honest. And once we got a nanny, it was something that I immediately prioritized and said, I'm going to do this. I now have the time and the ability to. This morning, I spent 2 hours volunteering somewhere that I've wanted to volunteer since we moved here. And it was such an incredible experience that I was able to prioritize because we had the childcare here helping do the caregiving, the most important task, that allowed me the time to go fill up my cup in that sense. So again, it's just given me this freedom to be able to pour into my separate buckets that I'm utterly, eternally, and forever grateful for. I hope that answered questions. I hope that helped any workaround that someone might be having. I don't know. I just felt like this topic is something that I know I converse a lot about with my friends, but I don't feel it's discussed a lot on social platforms. And even myself, I'll watch some creators and I'm like, how are they doing this all? Like, how the fuck are they doing this all? And I texted my one friend being like, does so-and-so have a nanny? Because literally how? And she was like, fucking of course. And even I caught myself in that comparison because it's just something that, I don't know, people just aren't entirely open or transparent about. And that's why I have wanted to be, because you know, it takes a fucking village. It's not a saying for a reason. It truly takes a village. So thank you so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you and you enjoyed it, please feel free to share it with a friend and rate, subscribe, review, all of the wonderful things. I hope you have a great week and I appreciate you so much.